Okay, so today, React. We're going to be looking at React. I think it's because the resolution got changed on that display. What in the world is React? Well, let's come over here and find out. I have a tutorial. Well, W3 Schools has a tutorial on React as well. Get F11 while I'm over here. Okay, so what is React? Let's think about React. And if you want to go to W3 Schools, there is a W3 Schools across the top of the menu. There is a separate section for React. It is so big, it's not just a subsection of JavaScript. It has its own section there in W3 Schools. So let's find out what in the world is React, and maybe make it a little less scary. It is scary at first because the code looks quite different than your normal JavaScript. But you have enough skills, a little background in JavaScript to know what to do with this. So let's see what can come with React. In order to understand React, we need to understand the DOM. What is the DOM?
Basically the browser in HTML.
It's the browser. You're communicating to the browser. What does DOM stand for? Document Object Model. The document object model. And you've been using it. We just haven't always referred to it as a document object model. When you go get element by ID, you are accessing the document model dot method get element by ID, whose name is parent, and you're getting the last element child. That is the document object model. Whenever you do document dot something, document dot alert, window dot alert, the document, when you do the get element by ID, where we're doing all over the place, that's accessing the document object model. And so here we have a div whose ID is first child. Well, who's my parent? Well, div ID is parent. What are they doing? Well, in the document object model, I can get access to the 3 children of the document object model. Actually, the third, I'm getting access to the 4th child, because remember, child 0 is the first child. Child 3, this would be probably this H1 element. That would be the 3rd child of the parent element. Now, you don't have to go by ID for the child, but I do have to do document get element by of the parent. So all this document.get element by ID has overhead associated with it. In order to go modify, and remember, this is all running in my browser. When my browser wants to go access and change something on the page, I have to go through all of this. Go, give me my model, let's find that element whose name is parent, let's find the child, return that element, and now change the inner HTML or change the property of that, all the fun things you can do once you have a connection, a object, a handle on the child. So because JavaScript is doing this all the time, accessing that document object model has a lot of overhead, especially as your pages get more complex. Now, guess who invented React? Someone who created pages that all the world uses that get very complex, and they make money at it, manipulating society's opinions of things, manipulating elections, and suppressing speech.
Preach.
What is the site I'm talking about?
Google, Reddit.
Many of them, right? Mainly it's Facebook. The first one that was the big social media was Facebook. There's many other social manipulators out there. I wouldn't even call them social media. Call them social manipulators. That's what they're doing, and I think you don't realize it, but you have been manipulated by social media. You just can't help it, because wherever you read your news, they're manipulating you. So they invented, because their pages got more and more complex, and they loved JavaScript. They were using JavaScript for writing their pages. So the Facebook people invented React. And because it's a great way, an efficient way to modify and display elements on the page, React is a thing. And if you're going to do JavaScript, you better have understanding of React. That will be a question I guarantee will come up in an interview. If not, right on the job requirements is you need to know React. So I want to expose you a little bit to React just so you have an idea and you're not completely foggy when someone talks about React. Until you've done some React and done a few projects, it'll still be pretty foggy. So we'll get some small projects going in React just to give you some foundation in it. But it's very weird at first. So but part of the reason that they love it is because of that wonderful object model. This has a lot of overhead, the document object model. So what does Facebook do about this? Or what does React do for us? Well, here's our object model. We have to remember all of this. If we want to get at some part of an element, I can browse through the tree of my document. This is the document object model. Why is it an object model? Well, I can do document dot something. That means the document is an object-oriented programming, and dot something is traversing down through that model. And you have to know the model. Autocomplete is helping you quite a bit under Visual Studio Code, but still, it's a lot of overhead just running the code. You don't notice it in your simple web pages we're making in this class, but Facebook people, any complex page, they decided, let's do something to simplify all this manipulation of the object model. So they came up with this. Instead of telling your browser's document, I want to change this element, or I want to read this element and then make a change, and then I want to make that other element change based on what choice they made in their choice of auto or model of car or manufacturer, and all those changes that have to happen in the user interface. Let's let React keep a virtual document object model. So behind the scenes, when you in React aren't making changes to the user interface, React is figuring out the best way to make that change by keeping its own copy, the virtual copy, mirroring the actual document object model. And because it's only in memory, not worried about what's being displayed on the screen and what image buffers it has to hold and things, it avoids the overhead, and pages don't get sluggish when you have a lot of complex things happening on them. So your document object model in React is the virtual document object model. So think of the document, the actual document object model is what your browser is showing you when it's rendering the page. The virtual one is like a step backwards. Let's figure out what needs to be displayed in memory before trying to do all the graphical things that is that large overhead. What is the cost of this? Well, we've got something in memory, therefore my page is going to take up more memory in my browser, because not only do I have my document object model that's displaying on the screen for the user, there's that virtual document object model. So we're trading efficiency for using up a little more memory. And memory is fast and cheap, so this shouldn't be a problem, we hope. So we're avoiding overhead. That's the key to React. And not only does it avoid overhead, it's not just CPU overhead, it's coding complexities. It does get a little more abstract in the coding, but the coding is less code to write. And we'll see that in a little bit. Now, change detection. Remember, we have this virtual object model. When it does change, when we decide to make something, display something differently, and tell React, make this change in your virtual document object model, it has a smart way of updating the actual document object model. It first updates the virtual document object model. Okay, so you do a bunch of things to the display. In React, you're only modifying the virtual document object model, and then now you got a virtual one you've made changes to. You want that to map then to what the user sees, the real document object model. They have a special diffing algorithm that they've made super efficient. So when you make a change in the virtual, it's very fast to then update the screen that the user is seeing. So again, you're using fancy algorithm, using extra memory to make the reaction of your page much more efficient to the user. You want a responsive page, not pauses and not spinning things. Just immediately you see the change on the screen. So that's what they call the reconciliation. In the reconciliation, with that diffing algorithm, they make sure that you only do the things you need and it's low overhead. You avoid costly operations of re-rendering the page. You've seen that when you reload the page, your pages are simple enough you hardly notice. It's a blink and it's replaced. But any page with any significant complexity, you'll see that pause in the display. If there is any network bandwidth, that'll even slow it down even more. So there's performance gains. The whole idea, just like you buy the graphics cards for the games to have the games have better graphics, React has better graphics and reactivity of the main page by only updating what's needed to be updated in the actual document object model. So virtual document object model, actual document object model. And part of that synchronizing is it optimizes it in a way that they call batching multiple updates. They call that asynchronous rendering. Don't worry about knowing all the details of that. Just know that term. Asynchronous rendering, basically piling them up together so a bunch of updates can happen all at once very efficiently. So the whole idea is you have a responsive user interface. As the graphics or pages get more complex, you don't slow down. So you go to Facebook with all the extra things they throw on there, the ads, all those things that are manipulating your brain as whenever you visit that page, they're making that more responsive. And there's other things that React does for us as well. Okay, here's an example of a React code. You saw a definition of a class. Here we have a little extra. Let me get my little marker going here. We have a little extra here. We have a extends. This is object-oriented language, meaning the shopping list is a React component with more in it. Extends means I have one of these and I'm going to create something like that with additional things besides this. So that means this shopping list is a React component and I'm going to add more to it. Well, what can I add to a component? Well, I can, let's just go over the terms here. This is the keyword class, means I'm defining a class. Shopping list is the name of my class. Extends means it's a child of a parent. The parent class is the React component. Again, the parent class means a shopping list is a React component with additional things, extending the parent class. There is a function called render in a React element, and basically it's a efficient code showing what to render. Now it's best to see this by example. It looks a lot like HTML, but it's not quite the same. So we'll be writing code that's like it feels like a mixture of HTML and JavaScript, and it's very confusing at first. One more thing about React is that it uses Node.js, and that's a whole nother thing. Node.js basically lets me do server-based things. I can open files and access databases on the server in Node.js. Really cool. Basically, I don't have to learn Python or PHP or server-based language. I can use JavaScript on the server if I am using Node.js. So it uses the engine. It's like a compiler on the server that understands JavaScript on the server side, giving better performance. And they made up a word, performant. I don't even know if that's a real word, performant. Okay, now is the time for you to actually test that React.js is working properly on people.emmaus.edu. I want you to be able to see hands-on on our own server. So see if you can follow these instructions. I'm going to follow them myself and see if this is actually working. I'm going to bring up PuTTY terminal in order to log in, to browse to that page. I could use SSH from the command prompt. So I'm going to log in, go to my save people.mace.edu, double click. Here's my login prompt. I'm logging in as AT Manning. You can log in as your user.
Wait, this is not done in the browser?
No.
Oh.
Basically what you're doing, because of the way React works, we have to get something started on the server in order for me to visit a port on the server, 3000 something.
For PuTTY, to get to the server you're talking about, what is the IP address?
Oh, just put people.mace.edu in there for the address, and then you can save it in your PuTTY.
On port?
Port 22.
Okay.
Yep. And now I'm logged in. I'm gonna go make sure it works for me, and I want to make sure it works for you. I'm now gonna go to, I'll get this screen out of your way here. I'm gonna now CD. Actually, I can make this a small screen so you can see the instructions as I do it over here. And now I'm going to CD over to that path. CD var www HTML people cs460 React Manning app. And you're going to go to your last name dash app. So now in my Linux command, I can type pwd and see that that's where I am on my system. Now all I do is type npm start. Once I have gone over there. Uh-oh. I don't want to be port 3001. I want to be port 3000. So I'm going to edit my app. Oh, I just realized. Oh, I missed I missed a. Let me fix your apps. There is a change we have to make. I just realized we have to make a change. Let me go fix this. First, I'll fix Coniglio's. So I will do I'm going to do a vi sudo because it belongs to you now. Sudo vi Coniglio app package.json. I have to edit one little thing here. For Coniglio, you are 3001, so I have to put in here, in your little React app, port equals 3001. Okay, now I do the same thing for Dromarski. You're going to be port 3002. So when you do the npm start, you get the right port assigned to you. And who comes next is, that would be Marsh Locklear. And I'm editing your start port equals 3003. Saving that. And Marchant and Mass sudo. And Marchant is port 3004. And the last one, I'll get Mast working here, sudo. You are port 3002. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my port. I'm going to go back to CD8 Manning, and I'm going to do npm start. What has been done for you is the actual building of the framework on the server side, which I don't want you to have to worry about. It's a very complex thing and super confusing the first few times you do it. All you have to type is npm start, and what it's doing is it's actually starting a server process that is serving your React page. And once you see, you'll see the starting of the server, and then you should see a it's ready and happy something, I think it says, once it's started. So a React, in order for React to work, it has components that have to be installed and running on the server. Okay, now that this is installed and running, I'm essentially temporarily running my specific React framework on the server. Now I can visit site 3000 on the people.ma.edu, and let's see what I get. The Manning page, I'm going to go back up to the React page and go to my Manning app. Actually, I don't even have to put my Manning app in there. I just have to tell it it's port 3000 on the server. That's right. The port 3000 on the server is what is running my React app, and I'm getting this site can't provide a secure connection. That was working for me from my office. Why?
Oh wow. SSL received a record that exceeds the maximum.
Oh. I wanted you to get a taste of actually the server side. I'm getting the message, can't provide a secure connection.
This is the one I got.
Yeah. Let's try getting HTTP in front of that instead. Yeah, put HTTP in front of it instead. And it works. Here's what I get when I do HTTP not secure.
Yours isn't moving.
Yeah, why isn't mine moving? Let's reload. Huh. So each of you now are running a React server. And now, let's go ahead and go modify your code. Well, let's first of all, make sure you all get this far. So let me edit that page on the instructions here. So I have to go visit, let me escape out of this. Let's visit http:// You have to visit the insecure website, not the HTTPS, which is the default. I'll see if I can figure out a way to make it work securely. Once you visit that site that matches your port that I have configured your React app to run on, then you will see this. And now, let's see what happens now as I follow these instructions. Let's go ahead and edit that source file, app.js, and let's see what React source files look like. Make sure it's all working for you all first here. Get logged in. You don't want to see any of the source. Go up one level and do npm start. See if you got that. So now you're in the app, just do npm space start. Yep. And don't do a control-C or anything. That is your React server running temporarily. I don't have them running constantly because I haven't got that working yet. Did you do your npm start? Well, you need to connect to the server using SSH. Yeah. Well, either run PuTTY or run SSH from the command line.
I just hold for the fact that or maybe I just have bad eyesight at this point.
Now type SSH space people.ma.
No, I've also done that.
Everything's just too small initially. Like I can't.
Now say yes. At Firefox. Now type in your password. Same one that I gave you for your sending files over. cs460. That's what it was.
Certain development tools on Visual Studio that we have installed. That won't bother installing. But there's nothing else. There's no other virtual machines or any other users on this computer. So come on, I think. I hope. I'll delete it before he wipes the computer.
I think the first thing you were supposed to do when you connected in before was to change your password. I can reset it to the Luke 24/7. All right, I'll make sure it is. I'll make it a capital L. Let me go in and update your password here. I'll show you the Linux command. Well, I'm running the server, so I have to have a separate PuTTY window. I'm going to use the command line PuTTY, or the command line connection, just so to show you can use this way too. So SSH people.mac.edu and log in. AT Manning. It's giving me the same problem. Why is that? Is SSH messed up? Let me try PuTTY. Maybe you have to try PuTTY. I mean, connect from PuTTY. That's weird. Oh, I wonder. Let's try this. Let's try this, Harley. Let's try this. Let's try SSH, your username, and then people.mace.edu. So put your username and at people.mace.edu and see if that comes out better. Looks like it's doing the same thing for me. Maybe. Oh, yeah, it did lock me. It did let me in that time.
Okay.
I don't know why that would work and the other one didn't. Okay, so now when I'm over there, see if that lets you in now. And if it doesn't, then I can change your password. So put hlocklear at people.mace.edu when you do the SSH. Okay, it's weird that does that. Okay, now that you're there, so Harley, then go over to here. I'll show you the commands here. You go over to cd /var/www/html/people, and you can hit tab and cs460 tab and react, and then you can go to the Locklear folder, Locklear app. It won't let me because it belongs to you. Oh, it does let me. Huh. And then you can do npm start. And then visit your port, which is yours is 3003. So http://people.mace.edu:/3003. Let's make sure you got that. John, did you get your React up? So you visit the page and it shows the React thing. Let's visit your browser. Oh, there, I see it. Okay. No, it's just your last. You just type LOC and tab. Yeah. No, try it again. Do a CD. Do up arrow. And then backspace. Hit tab. It's Locklear -tab. So type LO and then hit tab. And then now do npm start. It'll go through basically starting your own and see you're running on 3003. So now bring up your browser and browse to http://people.mace.edu:/3003. And go back to your window to see whether it's completely started. And once you see ready, you'll see your browser page will refresh, and there you get that. Okay? Now, the wonderful thing about this is now when you edit this page, and this is accomplishment for me, I can see that by sending each of your servers is listening on a separate port. My React server is listening on port 3000. your React server is listening on different ports. So we basically have 5 React server processes running. So you own your own process. And now, as we see, all you have to do is edit source app.js now. So now let's look at that source and start messing with that source code. So I'm going to go to this page where I'm logged in. I'm logged in there, and now let's edit the source code just like they say. So I'm going to go to the Manning folder, the Manning app source folder. So I'm cding to that just so I can see what's in there with a ls. And there I see the app.js with a capital A. Capitals are a big deal with React. Now you can decide what editor you want to use. You can even use WinSCP if you like, edit it on your Windows and then send it over to your little React app. I'm just going to use the simple, I'll go Nano today, Nano app.js. And let's take a look at what this React code looks like. See if I enlarge this window, does it enlarge my editor? Yeah, it looks like it does. Okay, let's take a look at this code. Can I enlarge my fonts? Let's see here. Control plus. Look at that. Okay, let's see what we have here. We have a function called app. We have some imports going on. But do you notice it's kind of a mix between JavaScript and HTML? Quotes aren't where you expect them to be. This is a very fundamental basic app in React, where you define a function called app with empty parentheses, that all it does is return all of this that's within open and close parenthesis from here to here. And what is it defining? Well, it's defining an app with a name, it has a header, and it has a anchor with some interesting hrefs in it, and a link that'll take us somewhere. It has, oh, here we go, an image in my header, source equals, oh, curly braces around the word logo, and then class name equals app logo, alt equals logo. That is essentially the image element that you're seeing. Mine isn't spinning, I don't know why. Now let's change some things in this code and watch my page change. Let's see, it says edit src or learn React. Let's see if I can change that text that says learn React. There's the learn React link. I'm going to shrink my edit window a little bit. Let's change that link here. I'm going to go down in my browser. The Nano browser lets me use my arrow keys. Let's change that to Manning is going to learn React. Put an exclamation point at the end. And now let's do a Control-O, write out the file. Control-O saves the file. And I hit enter. And look at that, in a second or two, it automatically updates what that page is showing. I have manipulated the virtual object model. React has updated the actual document object model. So as I edit the code, my page will automatically update. I don't have to go to my browser and refresh. That's one of the characteristics of the React server. Question, John?
Mine crashed when I refreshed it.
Your page crashed? What's your page showing that was running the editor, or was running the where you did the npm start?
This would be here.
Well, you killed the npm start when you started the editor. You gotta leave the npm start window still running. So exit the editor. You can save it and do the npm start again, and in a separate window do the editing. Yeah. Now if you edit, then you should be okay. And then eventually your page is going to show up again once this is all done, so restart.
It worked. That's crazy.
Okay, now that page should refresh in a second. You shouldn't even have to refresh it. So leave this running, because that's essentially your server running. And then use a separate window to edit the code.
Oh, how do we open up a separate window?
Control X will exit the editor. And you can type yes to save or not. Oh, now you gotta remember your Linux commands now.
Yeah.
cd source takes me to the folder. You're trying to cd source down to another folder called app.js. Well, app.js is not a folder. So you just want to do cd source, cd space src. And now do ls. You are not in the folder yet. When you did cd blank, that took you back home. So you need to go up arrow a few times until it sees the command where you did the cd all the way up to the very place. Keep going up. Keep going. There we go. And then now do npm start, and then you want to putty over or ssh within a different window. When you stop that, you stop the server. So now you need to do another command prompt or a putty to connect over to your server in a separate window. So go ahead and start another command prompt. You don't want to mess with that command prompt. No, you don't want to control C. You want to start a separate command prompt window. Separate process on Windows. Command. You want to start separate. You want to leave that SSH alone. You could even minimize it so you don't accidentally stop it. And then now do an SSH. So you essentially SSHing twice. One is just to get the server started. Yeah, just leave it open, or your background is, and it's just running. Basically you're manually starting the React server. So, yeah. H Locklear add people in. So the cool thing about this is you can now, whenever you want to, connect over to that server, or you could even leave it running now in the background. Have that your individual React server running on people.mesa.edu. If you leave that window where you did the npm start, if you don't ever close that window, that process will continue going. And if you learn some Linux things, you can actually leave the process, have it so the process keeps running even when you log out. I'll leave it to you to figure that out. So now you can do a cd over to that bar folder again. /cd, no, you got cd slash, cd space, /var, /ww, /html, /peo and tab, peo tab, cd on tab, /cs460, and then react, capital R tab, and then lock tab, and then cdsrc, cdsrc, because this is where, and now ls to show what's there, and we're going to VDI or nano app.js with a capital A. Now, any change you make, you are manipulating React. So you're learning React basically by example, which sometimes it's harder to learn by example. You want to read about it. Let's learn by example a little bit, and then we'll go back and figure out what we're doing. So I'm using nano. I see I adjusted that little tag right here. Notice I'm right in the middle of this function app inside the return parentheses. No quotes around that, but basically what return does is render that, and see what I have at the end? I do an export default app. That actually is what, in this little example, runs the app. If I comment this out, I don't think I'll see my page at all. I have to export default app for my page to work. So don't mess with anything except the parts that look like they ought to be able to be messed with. Let's take a look first at this one. The logo, source equals logo. I don't even know, where does he get the logo? He imports something. Yeah, so there's the logo. He does import logo from logo.svg. So it looks like the keyword logo, when I did a import, now he knows what goes here between the two parentheses, the two curly braces. So logo is, think of this as I'm rendering HTML. Whenever I put a curly brace around something, it runs the JavaScript that references that variable. So there's a curly brace referencing the logo variable. Everything else is raw HTML. So nothing terribly exciting, only basically HTML that's being rendered from the return function, the return command in the app function. This is the weirdness of React. But little by little, as you build things and you see examples, it'll begin to make sense. But here's your first React app. That you can edit this as you're messing with things. Okay? So we have this. We're going to be starting to write some functions just to see how it all will work better. So let's now see what I can do with that editor open. Yes?
How does it have like a title without having like a head, basically?
The title.
React app on the.
Oh yeah, that I'm assuming.
Other metadata.
I'm assuming that's all inside of this app.css.
That metadata.
Take a look at what you see inside app.css. I bet you it's in there. I bet you there's well, there's in there an icon. There's probably an icon file up here. So let's take a look here, and let's bring up my other window. Oh, I'm going to exit the editor, Control X, since I'm done, and let's do ls. And there's the app.css. Let's just see what's in app.css. I'll just do a more of it. And I see that it has, look at that, it has some, it's supposed to be animated. I'm not sure why mine isn't. I don't see anything to do with the fav icon. Somewhere there's got to be the fav. Maybe React generates the code that gives it that little cute little fav icon thing. But yeah, you can play with your app.css and app.js. I'm just going to play with app.js. So I'm going to go back into Nano, app, capital A, app.js, as I learn what I can do with React. Now, this code was all generated for you by a little script called create React app. Rather than make you go through, why do you have to type in all this, import that, make this main function do the export default app, and all these huge files that are all over the place? Rather than you having to learn about all this, there's a little script that says build a basic app that you can build from. So I've given you a kickstart that when I go to your main folder, I do ls. It actually creates a folder called build, a folder called node modules. It creates these package JSON things. You don't want to have to learn about all this at the first. As you start learning more of React, you can start digging into what all these files mean. But I don't want you to have to worry about that. I only want you to worry about the source for now. Then you can start exploring what's in all these other parts of the framework of React. That's why it's a little scary to try to learn React. They give you examples, and then you're on your own about all this NPM stuff, and I got more confused about that than the actual writing the code. So I don't want you to get confused about how to set up the server unless you feel like exploring all that. I have set it up for you. All you have to do is do the login and start your server right there, and I'll just put in parentheses, this starts your React server. And it's mostly doing the node.js part of it. Which again, remember, node.js is basically JavaScript that can run at the server, not in your browser. Yes, John?
Will the PowerPoint be on Schoology to see later for the
Yeah.
information to get back in?
Yeah, it's in that. I think I shared this folder with you, but I'll if you can't find it, I'll make sure it's shared with you. Let's see here. File. Let's see what the sharing is. I think it's shared. Oh, it's restricted. Let me make that anyone with the link, and I'll share the link with you. Okay, now let's go back to the React, and let's see what we can do. There's that React tutorial I was looking at. And let's look at now at W3 Schools and what they say about React and what you can do with it now. I'm just bringing up the W3 Schools page, and they start explaining React. And let's go to an example here. Let's see here. Lots of this stuff here. They talk about React environment. I've done all that for you. Okay. Now here's the part where we've messed with. This is the React application that now you can edit, and this is in the W3 Schools React section, and it's right at the getting started. So I've basically done this for you, built your server that's running. All you have to do is do the npm start. You're welcome to try other things, but if you break it, you're on your own. So you have to do this at the server, npm start, then you'll be able to view the site. They were showing an example that actually you ran it on your local machine. I saved you from having to install all this stuff on your local machine, which has all these other things you have to do. I saved you from having to do all that. So you're running it on my server, and now let's make changes, or let's make a different app. They made a function called app, and only put in h1 hello world. Well, this is so boring, I don't think you want to do it, because yours is more interesting already. Here you could do function app simply has this in it. See how that return is here? Remember how we had return in the other one? Let's edit that thing again. Oh, I got to go back into source. I don't have to cd, so I can do this. I can do vi src / app.js. See how this has all this in there, app with all this return stuff in here? Well, we could change that to just have this in it. And guess what you'd get for a page? You'd simply have hello world, because you're only rendering a div whose class name is app, and there's an h1 element in there that says hello world. Instead of a fancier one that had a header and a image and with a logo. We're avoiding doing all that in the return. In this example, we just had the hello world, very boring. So what can we do next now? Well, we can define elements called first element, and look, it doesn't even have quotes around it. It has simply the tags around it, and I can render that simple element. That's a little boring too. Let's try something more interesting on the React server that you can do. Let's see, we don't want to worry about upgrading. Let's see if we can do something that's more complex here. They go through several pages. There we go. Let's see, the car, is that going to be looking good? Let's try something more interesting. Let's see here. I want to see the render thing. They go through a few classes here. Show. I want something more interesting than the hello world that we can add. That you can always go back to the. They're talking about classes now, and I don't want to worry about classes. I want to worry about. There we go. Let's go. Just jump to that here. So let's see here. They got that. They explain this. We're getting closer to what you have already. So they basically gave you a complex page, but then there's the class render. Oh, this might be interesting. Let's try. Well, we're getting close. We're getting close to what I want you to see. There we go. Here's what I want to do. Add this to your current JavaScript. Let's just go here. Let's add function instead of car. Let's do an h2 that gives your name. Let's do that. So let's add that function above here in our application. And I put myself in VI. So I'm going to right here put in the function, and I'm going to put, how about student, empty parentheses and curly braces. And inside of there, I'm just going to do a return h2. I am a student / h2. In React, functions always have to have a capital letter to start their name. I don't have to have semicolons. I'm putting the ending curly brace. And I've defined the function car. Down here in my app, for some reason I had extra character added. Down here in my app, I'm going to add, right after Manning is going to learn React, I'm going to put less than, capital C car, / greater than. I'm going to write it out, W, using my editor. And let's see what my page looks like now. Oops. Oh, car is not defined. Oh, I had a problem. What did I do wrong? Oh, you know what? Did my return? I think my return is missing the semicolon. I think that's what I did wrong. Maybe React is a little fussier about semicolons. Let me fix that. I think that was my problem. Let me do nano stars. Yeah. Let's put the semicolon here. I think I missed the semicolon. Let's see if that fixes it. Let's go Control O to write out. Oops. Control O, not Control I. Control O and enter. And yes. Oh, that didn't fix it. Car is oh, of course. What in my world am I doing? It's student. Remember, I had defined student, not car. Student, capital with a capital S. And now let's write it out. Control O, enter, and there we go. So this is how that function student gets rendered.
How did you call it?
I just put, let's arrow down to that in my nano. I just put right here, student, in as a tag. Essentially, I created a tag called student in React. I did that by simply saying function student return that. Pretty cool, huh? Student, open parentheses, defines a tag student down here, so I can do this down in my main app. Yes?
Still hard.
What do you get for a return? Oh, can't find variable car. Well, we don't find car anymore. Go back to the top. Function students.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
And did you save it? Have you saved it?
There we go.
I'm not broken anymore. Yeah. It must not have been saved. I thought it was saved. Okay. Very good. And Arlie, you're getting it? Yeah, Control O. That means Control O to do the write out. And enter. And then your page should update. There you go. Excellent. So little by little, it's like, this is weird at first. What good is this doing for me? Well, we got to learn it, and then as we start building something more complex, you'll see that, hey, this React stuff is making things a lot easier later on. Right now, it's just confusing because it's, what's the purpose of writing it this way? I could have written get element by ID, element.innerHTML equals, but basically they're setting you up for being able to do a lot fancier things because of this structure they've given us, where I can define tags now as a little function here. All right, so let's do something a little more complex now. And by looking through the W3 Schools tutorial, this was the example they gave us. Here, let's go back to their example over here. They gave us this one where I have car does this return. Now, just for fun, I want to see if it actually cares that I forgot that semicolon. I'm going to get rid of the semicolon just for now, just to see if it really matters.
No, it doesn't.
Control O to write it out. Enter. And my page is still rendering. Yeah, so the page is still rendering okay.
For some reason, it's not edible though.
Now here's an example they gave us. Here they do a garage function that uses car inside of it. So I can go 2 levels. So I'm going to copy paste the function garage here, and I'm going to change it to school and who goes to my school. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to copy and go to my nano editor, and I'm going to paste another function and right click. There's my function garage. I'm going to change that function to school with a capital S. And then down here, put who lives in my school, who studies in my school. How about that? Who attends my school. And now down here, instead of car, I have to put student. So student now will be rendered by school along with a H1 who attends my school. Yes, John. And now my app now, I want to, instead of put student here, I'm going to put school. Actually, I'll leave student there, and I'll add the tag school. Oh, I guess it doesn't like tabs, so it's showing.
Could you scroll back up so I can see the function?
So there's the rendering of school. And let's arrow up to see the actual definition of the function. Actually, I'll stretch this out. The definition of my function now is who attends my school? Student is rendered because there's a function named student. So it's getting a little more complex. And let's see here, I did do the write out. Let's see if it shows. Yeah, who attends my school? There it is. I am a student. Got rendered by who attends my school. See that attends my school is a H1. I'm a student is rendered with H2. And there's the code that did that. I defined a tag. Essentially in React, when I say function, I'm defining when if I do a return from another function that uses that tag, it'll render what that function renders. So little by little, learning a little more abstract nature of React. It's JavaScript and HTML kind of mixed together in a strange way. But little by little, as you use it, you'll realize that there is a method to this strangeness. First of all, I treat my tags are essentially a function defined. School is a function that uses another tag inside of it, so it's essentially embedded. Student is embedded in school. And what does student do? It says, I am a student. No parameters yet sent to our functions. We're going to be building that in a little bit. Yeah, JSX. Yep, this is JSX. I just pronounce it JSX. They may call it JSX. I'm not a nerd. I'm not a React nerd yet. Remember at the end, what actually get this working is the export default app. That's because this function here is doing all this. Now you're welcome to modify that function app, and I wouldn't be bad to make a backup copy of things as you make changes, just like you would do any server. Now let's do something a little more advanced. So we now have student inside of school. Let's see what else they show us. They're doing React DOM create root render garage. That's essentially what's happening to us when our app is doing the export default app. So you could do it. You could do this React DOM create root document root.render, or just do the export default app. I'm going to follow this because this is what the build React app gave me as a template. And Mr. Marchant has another button. You like to generate buttons. Okay, let's look at the error message so you can get a clue. Build failed.
Oh, yeah.
Syntax error.
Hardly
Expected corresponding
uniform
JSX
on
closing
Node.js.
tag. So you're missing a closing
And
tag
it's
somewhere, and it gives you
input
a
form.
line.
It says social security number, address, routing number, and at the bottom is a button that says look up.
You should just add an actual actual IP logger of your website?
An IP logger?
Yes.
What's going on there?
Is it
What's the lesson agreement?
possible? Is that an accessible information?
That corresponds with.
To get someone's IP address as they
Start
visit
with
your
an end of the
website?
tag.
Yeah.
A tag with no
Is that like
name.
readily accessible?
Why would you have a tag with no
Barely.
name?
I just
Oh,
looked
man.
it up. I'm not about to look it up right now.
Remember how we were using
Oh, I see.
What?
Remember how we were
I didn't
using
notice that was there.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Oh, that would make sense.
I
Well, where
learned-
is the error showing?
What?
The error is at
Use
line
wire
12, right after student.
We would only see stuff going to
To us.
broadcasted things.
Where do
only
you find your
broadcasted
H1?
things. Is what we see on this.
You have an H1
So
starting and
messages
another
sent
H1
to a
starting.
specific destination we won't see, I would think,
If
right?
you could tell your computer, hey, I'm a router. Then
That wouldn't crash the internet, would it? Or the local one?
no, you basically tell your
Drop it
router
down there
to
line.
just be
Unexpected
a
token.
modem, and you tell your computer, hey, you're the router.
Then you'd see
And you set up like a server for
Malicious?
Wi-Fi.
Nah.
I'm not even a networking student.
Look, guys, it wasn't malicious. I was merely collecting everything that came from the default gateway.
I need to make something. We need a game idea. Then I'll actually be motivated to make something for a side project.
Okay, now go down to where that code is joined.
I want to make one.
No.
I want to start making my websites.
Where is that code pointing?
You can do that?
Yeah.
C# is faster than JavaScript, right? So you could make like an entire game.
I think.
HTML is
Justify.
Whoa.
Once it is proper format.
But is it kind of like you? Does it work in the same way where the website skeleton HTML?
Try saving it now, just to see.
Style
if
CSS.
it's loading again.
Or you build your
That's
own
what you type. What do you type? What is that? Hard to know. So what is it saying? Unexpected token. It says after the div. Start a div.
I'm just looking for something that would help me to make faster scripts, bigger programs. I don't want to have to change the way I construct my skeleton.
I just need a better method for sorting things.
Unexpected token is that anything?
I feel like I'm always like, I hate the way I organize this file system. The more I'm like,
How do you delete that?
maybe that's some sort of
So I believe what happened was I started writing.
because I'm always like, I go to my file
place
system and I'm like, man, I hate the way my OneDrive is set up because nothing is sorted. Like, look at the
Now save it, see.
I get
if it
lazy.
fixes it.
Oh my goodness.
I get lazy and I don't sort things,
Wow.
even though it is sorted
That
up
was
here.
it, yeah. You gotta be careful editing the code.
And another great thing to do about it, do a save often. Because then you'll know, hey, within the last 5 minutes was something I broke. Otherwise, it's like, oh, what code broke what I've just been doing? And it might be something you did just the last second or 3 hours ago. So regularly save. And again, nice thing about this is as soon as you save it, because of the way the Java or the React process is running on the server, it watches for changes in your code. As soon as you make that code change, it sees the change and updates the rendering. Okay, so now we put a function inside of a function. And let's see if before we leave, let's see if we can do some sort of a loop here. Let's see. They've done a function inside of a function. Let's do something more interesting now. I want to look for more interesting code that you can always go back through and read the React. Let's see. We've done the components. Let's see, we've done the, let's see if we can do something like an array method, or should we get something simpler? How about an array method? Oh, here's a good thing. Let's try this. Here's a thing I'm seeing in an example on W3 Schools, is I can generate a list of things by defining an array. You've seen this before. But now I can make a list be this. I can say, in my list, map each item to a P element containing that item. Let's take a look at this just to see how the map thing works in a lambda type function. I'm going to copy paste this code into my editor now, and let's put that inside of, let's make a function called fruit. Now that I know how to define tags, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to define a function called fruit right up here at the top. Function, capital F, fruit, empty parentheses, and let's now do the code that I got from an example. Not that one. Is there an undo? Where's an undo? Is there not an undo? There it is.
Escape
Control,
U.
escape U. There we go.
Oh no, you're not using Vim, are you? Never mind.
Yeah, escape U works. I'm going to go copy that again. I thought I had copied that.
Interesting. Cool.
Control C, copy. Now let's try and see if that pastes again. Yeah. Okay, and paste. So there I have my list equals my array.item, and now I'm going to do return. And notice this one did not have the parentheses because it was a single line return. I'm going to put the parentheses in. I'm going to return my list. It should be a group of P elements, and I'm put a semicolon there and end my function. Now just to pretty my function up, let's tab things in a little bit, space them in nicely. So let's just, I'm attempting to use the mapping function of this thing called myArray, which I've given it, filled it with 3 constants, apple, banana, orange. And it returns my list after defining my list. Let's see what happens in putting fruit down here in my app. I'll put it after, maybe I'll put it at the top of my app just because I can then see both the code here. I'm going to put right there. I'm going to put, I should probably put it inside my header, huh? Yeah, well, I'll just put it inside my app, see what happens. We'll put in less than fruit with capital F, ending tag, just like I did student. Let's see what happens now if I write this out. Control O, enter, and there's my list of fruits. 3 divs, or 3 paragraph elements with apple, banana, orange showing at the top because I placed the code at the top before my header. So doing the map method of my array gives me a P element of each item in my array. So let's take a really good close look at this here. I've defined an array. You've seen this in JavaScript already. But here I can say my list is a mapping of that array, myArray.map, parenthesis item becomes, think of this as for each item in the array, I'm going to generate a P element with curly brace, that item's value, and then an ending paragraph. And let's see if I see that in the actual inspection of that page, Control-Shift-I, and let's look at my elements in my head. What do I see? I'm not sure if I can inspect React very well. Let's see here. There's my app. There it is. 3 P elements generated by that little map loop. So to traverse each item in my array, I can use the .map function. This is going to be seen lots of places. And that got rendered in my app by just putting in less than capital fruit ending slash. I'll leave that as our last example of what React can do for us. Yes. Return my list. What's going on? Get an error?
Just stumbling across.
Item, arrow,
Chop, chop, chop,
Oh, what's the genre called that you
Oh yeah,
play
okay.
all the
So
time?
double,
What's
double parentheses there, okay.
Liquid
And
drum and
return
bass.
to my list.
Liquid drum and bass. Liquid. Just do liquid DNB to get the message. Yeah.
So we've got unexpected food now.
Go ahead, save it again. Let's go.
It's an hour long.
Yeah.
5 hours.
That's why this is when I come down to the work on stuff.
It's not expecting the return after season.
I can't do an amen break right now.
That was working before, right?
What is it you were saying? Like basically every good racing game for the past how many years? Oh, what does it do?
The thing is,
Not quite. No.
Array.
I'm gonna work on it too. I thought it would. Every single drum and bass song has this break.
Oh, you're missing the ending tag on your paragraph again. Ending tags have slashes on them.
Like literally every single.
Ah, there's actually a I played a jet ski racing game.
You gotta remember, you're basically
It literally had that
that's
like
it.
name for it.
Every single drum and bass has some version
Oh, good
or
boy. Yeah.
remix or.
Oh,
This
There was.
one,
I'm
this
gonna watch
one
for
jazz
very
song
basic
from
technical
the
sound.
60s.
Yeah, autocomplete's
How about
messing you up.
this query? Liquid DNB slowed reverb.
Okay, so to summarize today,
put every
we just done a
phrase on
little
there.
practice in React, just getting an idea of how it's built. It looks weird, mixture of JavaScript and HTML. The curly braces is where you're going to see your power, where each item in that map is in curly braces. Anytime you see curly braces, let's render what that is. So, we'll do a little bit more Thursday. I've given you more time on your little blockchain thing. It's pretty straightforward, and I will update the video too that we did last week. Have a great one. I'll say this one too.